This curtain is attacking me.
You know that's going in the blooper reel, right? Welcome to the STEM Seekers Podcast, the podcast that equips you to help kids seek God through science, technology, engineering, and math. Hello, I'm David. Again, we've got the rest of our hosts here. We've got
Jeff, I'm here.
Nice and crisp as always.
Yep.
Fantastic. And we've got
Jeanette.
fantastic. All right. Today we're going to, we got a few more segments today to go through. First, again, we're going to go through our STEM bucket. So these are our resources that we want to share with STEM leaders and ways that can help engage your kids more in STEM and so on. And what have we got?
Well, I was thinking that I've heard several churches or several leaders say, what do we do with the kids that are a little bit too old for club? And I remember you sharing a story, David, about when you were at that age in between and how they said come to club and help, but they didn't give you anything to do. Yeah. And I think that what I've witnessed and heard that STEM is a really great way to get the little bit too old age bracket helping out, because they can help out with different things.
Like what?
Handing out the badges. Giving each of the kids badges. If they're helping out with, there's a younger kid trying to do one of the snap circuits or whatever, they can help out with that. I think the STEM Genius story, I know myself, that's one of my most favorite parts of it. And that's something that a 14 and 15-year-old could do to help out at club.
Yeah, because they can just read that right off the page if they want to.
And that was one of the things I'd commented one of our STEM breakfasts. So we'd had a young lady who had done the STEM Genius story and did such a good job of that in one of the clubs. And don't undervalue the teens, the young teens. Get them involved, and they can do the music as well. A lot of the kids love the music, and so they've got a lot more energy than some of the older folks do, and it's a great way to get the kids again involved.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great one. Yeah, I love that idea, and
memory verse too.
Memory verse,
because there is that progression with the teaching, right? That they don't have to start off by teaching a Bible lesson, but you can start them off with doing the STEM Genius story, or maybe they're interested in helping with leading the songs, because let's be honest, some of us would rather not be up there dancing to the songs and that kind of thing. But
I do. I know I'm like not very flexible, but I still love the song.
There you go.
I love the song, but I do not enjoy doing the actions to jump at all. But I know that's David's favorite song of all time.
We're going to bring that one back just for you sometime.
Just for me, thank you.
Just for you.
That's great.
Yeah, but there's that progression, and then memory verse, and then when they're really kind of getting advanced, then you're getting into your Bible lessons.
Right? Hand out the snack. If you do snack in your clubs, have a snack time during. Usually, we encourage you to do it during lesson time if you can. But having the older, the older, like the youth, be involved with that is great. They enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you talk about helping with like the STEM projects, like with this using the STEM equipment and stuff?
Yeah, if one of the kids are using, like snap. For me, it would be snap circuits, because I have no idea. I would have to have one of them come and help me, figure that part out. And I think that was great, because what does that say to an 8-year-old that a 14-year-old values them to come and help out with a piece of equipment or whatever? And what does that say about them wanting to be there too? I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that is also a huge thing for leaders, is that you don't need to be the one that knows everything about all the STEM equipment. And sometimes I think there are things that people feel uncomfortable with, and so you say, I'm not going to get that out of the library because I don't want to have to go through the learning process of figuring that out. But if you've got some 14, 15-year-old students in your club, honestly, let them take it home with them for a week and let them figure it out. And they'll come ready with it, and it makes your life a lot easier too. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Last time we met, we talked about STEM resources, and I recommended Mark Rober's YouTube channel. And so you two were going to go and watch some Mark Rober, and were you able to do that? And what were your thoughts?
So I went on and watched, it was like 30 minutes worth of Mark Rober, and he roped in some of his best friends who are like amazing at all different types of like engineering and coding and all those kind of things to help him just drop an egg from space. And apparently it took them 3 years to finally get to the point where they got this done. But it was so interesting watching the story. I don't even know how much it cost them to do it, but all the engineering and planning that went into all of the mechanics of the having a rocket that not a rocket, but it's kind of looked like a rocket thing, where they put the egg inside of it to drop it, and it was very interesting. But it took them a number of different times to get to the point where they could actually drop it from space, because they tried a number of different attempts and were very frustrated about it, and then finally got it done. And they used one of those cool weather balloon things that goes right up into space, the upper atmosphere, which is really cool.
Wow.
And but to see, science is about too learning from your failures as well, and I guess that's a good application for life too, isn't it? Is that sometimes we go through and things don't go the way we always plan them to, but we can learn from those things and move on and make corrections where necessary, and that's what they did. Even though it was frustrating at times, they had to go back to the drawing board so many different times, but eventually they got it done what they wanted to. So they didn't give up, which is another good life lesson. Sometimes it's so easy to get frustrated and with the lack of the result that you want, and just sometimes want to give up. But it was a really good story of not giving up, having a vision, and seeing it accomplished. So it was really good. And on top of that, I watched one of his other videos on the exploding boxes that he does that go...
The glitter bombs.
The glitter bombs are so awesome. So I couldn't help it. It was like the next video, and I was like, I gotta watch this. And it's, how he planned, and it's Amazon, people are stealing the Amazon boxes off his front porch, and just getting the reaction
how many people complain about that, right? Complain about the porch pirates, and here's this engineer that says, I'm going to do something about it. Not anything dangerous or harmful.
That he went to the police, so he had video evidence, and they said it's not worth our time to even investigate.
Right.
So he's like, well, how do I encourage these people not to do it? And so he built a contraption with the cameras and watching the reaction, and the guys in the car, and all of a sudden the glitter goes off and the fart spray, and they toss it out of the car. It was hilarious. Anyway, not that we're encouraging any of that.
Never. We would never encourage fart spray and glitter bombs.
But it was very innovative. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeanette, what did you think?
Well, as Jeff was saying, I'm like, oh, that makes me sound really bad. I enjoyed the glitter bomb. I had watched it previously. And I did think that the egg into space was kind of cool, but I'm not the type that needs to know all that in the middle. I want to see what he wants to do, and I want to see whether it works or not, but I don't need all that stuff in the middle. I think it was great. And I did enjoy, watching the video, and every now and then I would look over, but I wasn't the whole follow through of figuring out. There was way too many math solutions. Simple math solutions is what he said.
Right.
Yeah, that was over my head, but I did, and it brought back memories. I was telling you of in grade 11 or 12, we did a science experiment where we had to wrap the egg and drop it from the roof of the school. And if it didn't break, then you passed, type thing. So I could relate to that part of it. Space is a little, above and beyond.
Whoa! You gotta save us for the STEM joke time.
But, so yes, I appreciate what he does. I don't need all of that in-depth part. I just want to see his thought and then how it actually make it happen.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the part I enjoy.
Because they are longer videos. They're like
They
15,
are,
20
yeah.
minutes long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So-
Okay, so I got to find something shorter for you.
Absolutely.
At some
I'm
point.
on board for that. Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, because my recommendation for today is actually not a shorter one, but instead of YouTube, I am recommending a podcast called the STEM Everyday Podcast. It's hosted by Chris Wood. Is it Wood or Woods? I sent notes to you guys, but I didn't actually send it to myself. And so-
You have Chris Woods in our notes.
Woods. Okay, his name is Chris Woods, and he's all about helping educators bring more STEM into their class every day, and so he interviews different people from NASA and different educators and people from different STEM projects to just come up with different ideas. Actually, that's where the idea for the 3D printer came from. There was somebody that was using 3D printers as part of their class, and then I think it was part of that podcast where they brought on, I think the kid was something like 9 years old, and he had started a business. His parents bought him a 3D printer, which are relatively inexpensive now, and he created these things that he would actually sell. And I'm like, wow, if this like 9-year-old can figure this out, well, I bet you our STEM leaders can figure out how to do that. And so, yeah, I get a lot of inspiration from them and different ideas. And yeah, so I'm going to make that recommendation. I like podcasts as well because they're kind of more of a mindless thing that you can listen to while you're driving or when you're doing the dishes. You don't have to just sit down and give your full attention to it, as opposed to Mark Rober, which is where you're kind of sitting down and giving it your full attention.
Which we're glad
as
you're
well.
making this. You're giving us your full attention today in this podcast.
Yes,
right?
well, yeah.
I mean, I know like everybody else, it's okay just to kind of
Well,
give your full attention, but
I
we
gotta-
just appreciate
Well,
that
the
you're giving us
clarity
your
of
full
picture that we have
Yes.
here is
Yeah,
really
I know,
good.
it's
It's,
wonderful.
it's high definition.
Yeah, exactly.
3D and
3D, 4D,
yeah.
more like 40.
Right,
Yeah.
there you go. Oculus Rift and all that kind of stuff.
So I wonder if Jeff has a STEM joke for us today.
I do. I've got actually two today for you, okay? So the first one is this. What's the most terrifying word in nuclear physics?
I wish I could say I don't know, but you told me.
I
earlier,
know. Ready? Are you
What
ready
is
for
it?
this?
What is it?
Oops. That's so funny, I think.
That is amazing. That is the best one that you have
Yeah,
found
I
so
mean, it's
far.
like
Absolutely.
sitting there in a lab and you think, yeah, that's just genius.
That's
Yeah, and I've got another physics joke for you. So what did the nuclear physicist have for lunch?
I don't know.
Fission chips.
There you go. That one goes well for you coming from England,
from the
right?
UK side of things. I love
Yeah.
a good fish and chips from England. Not so impressed with the Canadian versions, but
Right.
that's all right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff.
No worries.
Those were
So
fantastic.
just remember that when next time you have fish and chips.
Okay,
There
we're
you
gonna
go.
get some fish and chips.
Fish and chips.
Some fish and chips.
Yeah.
Nice. It goes well with our talk last
does.
time. You know, we're talking about fusion, fish, and all that.
Exactly.
Today's STEM discovery is not as new as the fusion one from last time, but it was a couple of years ago that SpaceX landed a full-size rocket, which just blew my mind when I saw that. They
Can I just say,
Yeah.
it blew my mind too.
right.
Because in past they've never been able to do such a large thing, and it's just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's reusable then. Right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Because normally they launch these rockets and you lose all the components to it and you have to rebuild it all from scratch. But they're sent it up 10 kilometers and this thing came down, landed on the spot that it launched too. Like that in and of itself is
It's
just
so cool.
so amazing.
Totally
And then
bodacious.
right? It landed and then it blew up. Which is even better.
It's cool because even again, this is one of the things that my son loves watching a lot of Elon Musk, the things that they do with SpaceX and things. But they learn from all that to help them better plan for the future, and so then they've had other ones now, right? That they've been able to land now that didn't blow up. Right. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if they're the same one because there's the rockets that they
but I think they have landed them successfully now. Yeah. But I found that it really interesting in the way that different people viewed it, because when the rocket landed and then blew up, if you looked on like news outlets, they said SpaceX's rocket blew up. But if you looked at SpaceX's website, they said that the rocket landed, right? And it was this kind of thing where, yes, it landed, but it also blew up. But it also landed, right? It actually landed, and I was more impressed with the landing than I was with the explosion.
And they had so many attempts to land it in the past.
Yeah,
that for it to be landing at that time was really it's a step by step process.
Yeah,
they learn. Yeah, they learn.
It was exactly.
Just like Wagon and Witch is the Mike Roper stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're always learning and we're always growing. Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be a STEM Connect that we're going to do.
There's got to be. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, what a great
We're going to blow something
I have a question for you, David.
All right.
I would like to ask a creator this question.
Okay.
You're one of our creators. In STEM, we have the STEM Connect, and I have heard you talk about many of them. Two of them stand out to me. One is Pi.
Yes.
And Hiram.
I love Pi.
Hiram.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the burning bush.
Yes.
So, over the holidays, I was explaining to my aunt what I do for my job, and that we have this program, STEM, and I was explaining it to her, and I was telling her how STEM and science, how science is related to the Bible, and how, we're trying to teach this. And she was very, very guarded or, negative opposed to it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, did you know that there's actually pi in the Bible? And she's like, there is not. Then I panicked and I couldn't think of my words, and I tried to explain it to her, and I was failing miserably. But then I remembered the burning bush that I've heard you tell, and it excites me every time you tell that story. I don't even know how many times I've heard it, but every time you tell it, it's like, it's the first time I hear it again. But anyways, what I want to know is how did you come up with so many of these? Like, what made you think, oh, look, now you have to help me because I always get this wrong. Now, look, the burning bush is an example of
the law of conservation.
The law of conservation.
Yeah.
How? I don't get that. Where'd that come from?
That's a great question.
I was just sitting there listening to some music, meditating one day, or eating a hamburger. That's probably even more like it, right? Law of conservation, right?
Actually, I think that was the very first STEM lesson that we ever did, was on Moses in the burning bush. And that was just what was coming up through our other curriculum. And it was something that we always said when we were developing these STEM ministries, STEM Club and STEMcation, is that we want there to be STEM from the time that kids come in the door to when they leave. So it's not enough just to have cool STEM equipment and tell stories about STEM inventors, but there should be STEM within the Bible lessons and the memory verses and everything. And that's where the STEM Connect idea came from. But that one just came out really naturally, that, we're looking at it and saying, okay, well, what's going on in this story with Moses and the burning bush? Well, Moses is seeing a bush that doesn't stop burning, and well, what's actually happening there? Because Moses knows, like, if you have a campfire, you normally see it burn up, because now we know that there's chemical energy in wood, and so when you light it, it turns into two different forms of energy, which are
Heat.
Yes, and
That's a thermal, right?
yes, that's thermal
And light
energy.
energy.
And light, right? We've got heat and light, and then once all of that chemical energy has been transformed into heat and light, then you're left with ash, which has very low potential energy, right? And so what Moses is seeing is he's seeing Almighty God, creator of the universe, create energy right before his very eyes, showing Moses that he's the God of the impossible that's going to give him the power to do the impossible job of telling Pharaoh to let his people go. And it was one of those things that just kind of naturally happened, that we looked at and were like, oh, that would work so well. We can so see this STEM principle being shown in this Bible lesson. And we kind of just kept going from there. Is we had other lessons that we wanted to do, and so we would open up our Bibles and look and just read them, and it was amazing how easy it was to do that, to look for those STEM connections. And it really reminds me of Romans 1:20 that talks about how God's divine nature is revealed in his creation, and that when you look through his word, that it's really easy to find ways that the world that he's created, and that's what STEM is. It's the study and use of the world that God has created to help us to get to know him more. And so it just naturally, oh, there you go, I'm getting texts. I should silence that for next time. So I'm right in the middle of making this amazing point, and of course forget to silence my notifications. Anyways, but yeah, that it just turned out to be this natural thing that when God says, I've revealed myself through my word, and I've revealed myself through creation, that it turns out to be incredibly easy to be able to bring those STEM connects into lessons. And we just put them there so that just write them out and put them in there so that it makes it easy
actually, now
for
that you say
leaders.
that, so many good stories. Like I was thinking, just like you said that. Then there's Gideon. Remember the fleece? He puts the fleece out and it's wet. Then he keeps challenging God. Well, the next day, So then the next day he put it out and it's dry where the ground's wet.
Yeah.
And then you've also got
we've already done that one.
Did you? Okay.
And we talk about dew point in there, like when the air gets oversaturated, and so you end up with dew, and that ends up on the ground.
So here's what we expect in science and law, but God, because he is above law and
he's the creator of those
outside
laws,
of
right?
space-time matter, he can invade and do these amazing things that no one else can do, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But there's lots of great stories that you can take that from. Have you done Nebuchadnezzar and
not yet?
And the fiery furnace and.
Oh, that one's on the list at some point in time, but
I had to ask you that question just so I could hear you tell the story.
There's so many places now. Like I find myself when I'm reading now at times, like thinking a little, that could be a little STEM connect there, some sort.
Right.
Anyway, it's just cool.
Yeah, definitely. The more that you do it, the more that you just see it in everything as well. Yeah.
Well, and that makes sense because we should see God in creation, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our podcast. Do we have a sponsor today?
Not yet.
No.
We're hoping someday.
All right. So I guess this podcast is again brought to you by CEF Ontario, which is where you can get a STEM club or STEMcation kit to help you to be able to reach kids in your neighborhood with the gospel. This is the program that we're seeing. Around 50% of the kids that are attending are from community homes outside of the church, and hope that you and your church are able to find this podcast helpful, that you're able to find STEM ministries helpful, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Take care. Hasta la vista. Ciao. Arrivederci.